Princess Lyra stood alone in the great chamber of the Galactic Council. The room was cold and silent. Thousands of empty seats rose around her like the walls of a grave. She was the last of her delegation. The others had left hours ago, unable to watch what was about to happen. The war was over. Volante Empire had lost for 30 years. Her people had fought against the humans. 30 years of blood and fire and death. The Volante were an ancient race. They had ruled 100 star systems before humans had even learned to make fire. They had ships that could crack planets. They had weapons that could burn entire fleets from the sky, but they had lost. Lyra still did not understand how. Humans were young, they were weak, they lived short lives on a single blue world, at the edge of nowhere. When the Volante first found them, they were still fighting each other with primitive machines. The Empire had laughed at them. They called humans be the insects and expected to crush them in months. That was 30 years ago. Now the Voltai begged for peace. Their fleets were broken, their armies were scattered, their people were starving. And the humans just kept coming. No matter how many the Volante killed, more appeared. They fought with a madness that made no sense. They died smiling. They charged into certain death and somehow survived. They adapted to every weapon, every strategy, every trap. The Galactic Council had broken the peace treaty. The terms were simple. The Volante would surrender their outer territories. They would pay tribute to Earth for 100 years, and there would be a marriage between Volante royalty and a human representative. Lyra was the youngest daughter of the Empress. She had no power, she had no importance. She was the perfect sacrifice. She accepted her duty without complaint. Her people needed peace. If marrying some human could save millions of Volante lives, she would do it. She was a princess. Sacrifice was her purpose. But standing alone in that cold chamber, she felt fear for the first time in her life. The doors opened. A single human walked in. Lyra had never seen a human up close before. She had only seen them in war footage, screaming creatures in armor covered in blood, fighting like animals. She expected something terrifying. The man who walked toward her was not terrifying. He was tall, but not unusually so. His hair was dark and cut short. His skin was a warm brown color, darker than most humans she had seen in pictures. He wore simple clothes, a white shirt, dark pants, no medals, no weapons, no armor. He walked slowly, calmly, like a man taking a morning stroll. His eyes met hers. They were brown like old wood. They looked tired. He stopped a few meters away and bowed his head slightly. Princess LRA, he said. His voice was soft and calm. My name is Daniel Cole. I am honored to meet you. Lyra stared at him. This was the human they sent. This plain, quiet man. She had expected a warrior, a general, someone important. This man looked like he had never held a weapon in his life. You are the representative of Earth, she asked. Her voice was cold. She did not try to hide her disappointment. I am Daniel, said he. Smiled gently. I know I am not what you expected. No, Lyra said. You are not. Daniel nodded. He did not seem offended. I understand this is difficult for you. I want you to know that I did not ask for this either, but I will do my best to be a good husband. I will respect you and your people. I will learn your ways. I will not shame you. Lyra felt something strange in her chest. His words were kind. His eyes were honest. For a moment she almost believed him. But she pushed the feeling away. This was politics, not love. This marriage was a prison, and they were both prisoners. Let us finish this, she said. The ceremony was short. A council official read the words. Lyra and Daniel repeated them. There were no guests, no celebration, no music, just two strangers promising to share their lives. In an empty room, when it was done, Daniel turned to her. Would you like to walk with me? He asked. I saw gardens outside. They looked beautiful. Lyra almost refused, but something in his eyes stopped her. He looked lonely. He looked as lost as she felt. Very well, she said. They walked through the gardens in silence. The plants were strange to both of them, neither human nor Vinti, but something from another world entirely. Daniel stopped to smell a flower. He touched the leaves with gentle fingers. He seemed genuinely interested. I have never seen anything like this, he said quietly. On Earth, we have flowers too, but nothing this color. Lyra watched him clear his throat. He was strange. All the Volante stories said humans were violent and savage, but this man touched flowers like they were precious things. What were you before this? She asked. Suddenly, before they chose you for this marriage. Daniel was quiet for a moment. He looked at a small blue flower and did not meet her eyes. A soldier, he said. Finally, like most humans, just a soldier, just a soldier. LRA knew he was lying, or at least not telling the full truth, but she did not push. They were strangers. They owed each other nothing. They returned to the ship that would take them to the Volante home world. Lyra went to her chambers and did not speak to Daniel for the rest of the journey. 3 days later, they arrived at the Imperial Palace. The Volante court received them with cold silence. Nobles looked at Daniel like he was an insect that had crawled onto their dinner table. They whispered behind their fans. They laughed quietly. The great Valenti Empire brought so low that a princess had to marry a common human. Lyra felt shame burn in her chest, but she held her head high. She was still a princess. She would not let them see her weakness. Daniel walked beside her calmly. If he noticed the insults, he did not show it. He smiled politely at the nobles who sneered at him. He bowed to the Empress with perfect grace. He spoke their language poorly but tried hard to use the correct words. The Empress looked at him for a long moment. You are smaller than I expected, she said. Finally, I apologize for the disappointment, Your Majesty. Daniel said, I will try to be useful in other ways. The court laughed. They thought he was making a joke at his own expense. A weak human knowing his place, but Lyra saw something flash in his eyes just for a second, something cold and sharp like a blade hidden in cloth. Then it was gone and he was smiling again. That night, Lyra lay awake in her chambers. She thought about the man she had married, the soft voice, the tired eyes, the gentle hands that touched flowers. In that flash of something else, something dangerous. She did not know who Daniel Cole really was, but she was beginning to suspect that nobody did. 3 months past the wedding, Lyra learned to live with her strange human husband. Daniel was not what she expected. He was quiet. He was polite. He never complained about anything. The chambers they gave him were small and cold, far from her royal rooms. He thanked the servants and said the rooms were perfect. The food they served him was Volante food, strange to human bodies. He ate it without complaint and said it was delicious. The court continued to mock him. They called him the human pet behind his back. They called him the peace trophy and the insect prince. Some nobles refused to speak to him at all. Others spoke to him only to insult him with words he did not understand. Daniel smiled through all of it. Lyra watched him from a distance. She did not spend much time with him. They had separate lives, separate duties. The marriage was political, nothing more, and she found herself noticing things. Small things. Daniel woke before dawn every morning. Larry knew this because the servants talked. They said he went to the training grounds when the sky was still dark. He ran around the palace walls for hours. He lifted heavy stones. He practiced fighting moves alone over and over, hitting training dummies until his hands bled. The servants thought it was funny, a human trying to train like a Volante warrior. They said he looked silly. They said he was weak and slow. But Lyra asked one of the guards about it. The guard was an old soldier named Vex who had fought in the war. Human, Vex said. His face was strange. Not mocking, something else. I watched him train once, just once, and Lyra asked. Vex was quiet for a long moment. I have fought humans in battle. Princess, I have seen them die. I have killed many with my own hands. He paused. This one is different. The way he moves, the way he watches everything. I have seen that look before. What look? The look of a predator pretending to be prey. Lyra did not know what to think of that. She decided to watch Daniel more closely. She began visiting the training grounds in the early morning, hiding in the shadows where he could not see her. She watched him run. She watched him fight. The servants were wrong. He was not slow. He was controlled. Every movement was perfect, efficient, like a machine built for one purpose. He never showed this to anyone else. During the day he was clumsy and awkward. He bumped into things. He dropped cups. He smiled and apologized. But alone in the dark morning, he was something else entirely. Lyra also noticed other things. When they walked together through the palace, Daniel always positioned himself on a certain side, always between her and the doors, always with his back to the wall. His eyes moved constantly, tracking every person, every shadow, every possible threat. He did this without thinking, like breathing. One evening, they attended a formal dinner. A noble named Lord Keth made a cruel joke about humans. The whole table laughed. Daniel laughed too, like he did not understand the insult, but Lyra saw his hand under the table. It was completely still. No trembling, no tension, perfect control. A soldier's hand. After dinner, she asked to speak with him privately. They walked in the gardens where they had walked on their first day. The stars were bright above them. Daniel looked up at the sky with distant eyes. You are not what you pretend to be, Lyra said. Daniel did not answer immediately. He continued looking at the stars. What do you think I am? He asked finally. I do not know, but you are not a simple soldier. You are hiding something. Daniel smiled. It was a sad smile. We all hide things, princess. You hide your fear behind cold words. Your mother hides her desperation behind cruelty. Your nobles hide their weakness behind insults. He turned to look at her. I hide what I need to hide. Why? Because if I did not hide it, your people would be even more afraid of humans than they already are. Something cold moved through Lyra's body. She did not know why, but his words frightened her. What Were you really, she asked, before this? Daniel was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was different. Heavier. Have you heard of the Reapers? Elari felt her heart stop. Everyone had heard of the Reapers. They were legends. Among Volante soldiers, ghost stories. Told in the dark, human soldiers who fell from the sky in metal pods, dropping through fire and death to land. Behind enemy lines, they moved like shadows. They killed like demons. Entire Volante armies had been destroyed by small teams of Reapers. The Volante called them the death from above. Commanders would rather surrender than face them. You were a Reaper, Lyra whispered. I was their commander. Daniel said quietly, for 15 years I led the orbital drop shock infantry. We were sent to places where normal soldiers could not go. We did things that normal soldiers could not do. Lyra stared at him, the gentle man who touched flowers, the quiet husband who smiled at insults. He was a monster, wearing human skin. How many of my people did you kill? She asked. Her voice was shaking. Daniel did not look away from her eyes. I do not know the exact number, thousands, maybe more. His voice was flat, honest. I was very good at my job. Lyra felt sick. She wanted to run away. She wanted to scream. This man had killed her people. He had destroyed families, ended lives, burned worlds, and now he slept in her palace, walked in her gardens, smiled at her servants. Why did they send you? She demanded. Why you for this marriage? Daniel's eyes were sad. Because I asked them to. What? I asked to be sent. I volunteered for this mission. He looked back up at the stars. I am tired. Princess, I have been fighting since I was 17 years old. I have seen things that no person should see. I have done things that no person should do. When they offered peace, when they said someone needed to marry into your royal family, I raised my hand. Why? Because I wanted to stop. I wanted to put down my weapons and never pick them up again. I wanted to sleep without nightmares. I wanted to watch flowers grow instead of watching people die. His voice broke slightly. I wanted to be human again. Lyra did not know what to say. She felt anger and fear and something else. Something like pity. I understand if you hate me, Daniel said. I would hate me too, but I promise you this. I will never hurt you. I will never hurt your people again. I am done with killing. I just want peace. They stood in silence for a long time. Finally, LRA spoke. I do not know if I can trust you. I know. I do not know if I can forgive what you have done. I know that too, but I will watch you, and if you are lying to me, if this is some human trick, I will find out. Daniel nodded. That is fair. He turned and walked back toward the palace. LRA watched him go. He looked smaller somehow, like a weight was pressing down on his shoulders. She thought about what the old guard had said, a predator pretending to be prey. She had married a weapon of war, a killer of thousands, a legend of death. And all he wanted was to watch flowers grow. She did not know what to believe anymore. The Empress's birthday celebration was the biggest event of the year. Every noble family in the empire attended. The great hall was filled with music and light. Thousands of guests danced and laughed and drank expensive wine. Servants moved through the crowds, carrying plates of food. The air smelled of flowers and perfume. Lyra stood near the edge of the celebration, wearing a silver dress that matched her skin. Daniel stood beside her in formal human clothes, looking uncomfortable but Polite, he had learned much of their language in the past months. He could hold simple conversations now. The nobles still mocked him, but less openly. Some had grown tired of the joke, others had noticed the same things. LRA had noticed the way he moved, the way he watched the predator hidden behind gentle eyes. Tonight Daniel seemed different, more alert. His eyes moved through the crowd faster than usual. His body was tense. Is something wrong? LRA asked quietly. I do not know, Daniel said. Something feels strange. The guards are positioned wrong. There are too many servants. I do not recognize. Lyra looked around. Everything seemed normal to her. Music, laughter, dancing, the same as every year. You are being paranoid, she said. Maybe, Daniel said, but he did not relax. The Empress sat on her golden throne at the far end of the hall. She looked old and tired. The war had taken much from her, but tonight she smiled and accepted gifts from her guests. Tonight she could pretend everything was fine. The ceremony began. Dancers moved across the floor in traditional patterns. Musicians played ancient songs. Nobles clapped and cheered. Daniel moved closer to Lyra. She felt his hand touch her arm lightly. When I say run, you run, he whispered. Do you understand? What are you talking about? Promise me. Something in his voice made her heart cold. She had never heard him sound like that, like death was standing beside them. I promise, she whispered. The explosion came 3 seconds later. The wall behind the Empress shattered inward. Fire and smoke filled the air. Screams erupted from everywhere. Guests fell to the ground, bleeding, dying. Masked figures poured through the broken wall carrying plasma rifles. The Imperial Guard rushed forward to protect the Empress. They were cut down in seconds. The attackers were fast and well-trained. This was not random violence. This was a military operation. Lyra froze. Her body would not move. She stood like a statue. As chaos erupted around her, people ran past her screaming. Bodies hit the floor. Blood sprayed across her silver dress. A masked figure turned toward her, his rifle pointed at her chest. She saw his finger tighten on the trigger. She was going to die. And then Daniel moved. She did not see him move. 1 second he was beside her. The next second he was in front of her. His hand caught the attacker's rifle and twisted it away so fast that the man's arm broke. With a wet crack, Daniel took the weapon and fired twice without aiming. 2 more attackers fell. Everything happened in heartbeats. Daniel pushed Lyra behind a stone pillar. She fell hard and felt pain in her shoulder, but she was alive. Stay here, Daniel said. His voice was different now, cold and empty. Like a machine, he turned and walked into the chaos. Lyra watched from behind the pillar. What she saw would stay in her memory forever. Daniel moved through the attackers like wind through leaves. He was not fighting. Fighting was what happened between equals. This was something else. This was a predator among prey. An attacker swung a blade at his head. Daniel stepped to the side, took the blade, and used it to cut the man's throat in one smooth motion. Another attacker fired at him. Daniel dropped low, rolled forward, and came up with the rifle. He shot the man twice and threw the empty weapon at a third attacker's face. While that man stumbled, Daniel closed the distance and broke his neck with his bare hands. There was no wasted movement, no hesitation, no emotion. Every action flowed into the next like water flowing Downhill, a small knife appeared in his hand. Lyra did not know where it came from. He must have hidden it somewhere. In his formal clothes, the blade danced through the air, cutting throats, puncturing chests, opening arteries. 5 attackers rushed him at once. Daniel killed them all in 7 seconds. The remaining attackers finally noticed what was happening. They turned their attention from the screaming guests to the human who was destroying their forces. They gathered together and fired at him from all directions. Daniel was not there. He had moved before they pulled the triggers. He was behind them, now killing 2 more before they could turn around. He took a rifle from a dead body and used it to shoot 5 men in rapid succession. 1 attacker got close and managed to hit Daniel across the face. His head snapped to the side. Blood flew from his mouth. He turned back slowly, looking at the man who had hit him. The attacker's eyes went wide with fear. Daniel killed him with 1 blow to the chest that stopped his heart. The entire attack lasted less than 3 minutes. 40 armed soldiers had entered the hall. None of them left alive. When the killing stopped, Daniel stood in the center of a circle of bodies. Blood covered his hands and face and clothes. He was breathing slowly and deeply. His eyes scanned the room for more threats. There were none. The Imperial Guard finally arrived in force. They had been delayed by other attackers. Outside, they stopped at the entrance of the hall and stared. The human stood alone among 40 corpses. Daniel turned and walked back to the pillar where Lyra was hiding. He moved past terrified nobles and crying servants. Everyone got out of his way. He knelt beside Lyra. His face was splattered with blood that was not his, but his eyes were soft, again, gentle like the Daniel she knew. "Are you hurt?" he asked quietly. Lyra could not speak. She could not move. She stared at him like he was a stranger, because he was. The man she thought she knew did not exist. This was the real Daniel Cole, the Reaper, the commander. "The weapon, Lyra," he said. He touched her face with bloody fingers. "Are you hurt?" "No," she whispered finally. "No, I am not hurt." Daniel nodded. He looked relieved. Then he stood and turned to face the Imperial Guard. "The Empress," he said. "Is she alive?" The guards looked at each other. One of them finally answered, "She is alive." Her personal guards reached her in time. "She is safe." Daniel nodded again. "Good, you should secure the palace. There may be more attackers." The guards hesitated. They did not want to take orders from a human, but they had just seen what this human could do. They nodded and moved to follow his instructions. Daniel turned back to Lyra. He offered her his hand. "Can you stand?" She took his hand and stood on shaking legs. She looked around the hall. Blood everywhere, bodies everywhere, screaming and crying everywhere. Dot and her husband covered in the blood of 40 men looking at her with tired, gentle eyes. "Who are you?" she whispered. Dot. Daniel smiled sadly. "I am what your people made me. I am what the war made me. I did not want to show you this. I am sorry. You saved my life." "Yes, you saved everyone's lives." "Perhaps." Lyra looked at the carnage around them. Then she looked back at her husband. "The monster, the weapon, the gentleman who touched flowers. Take me to my chambers," she said quietly. "Please." Daniel nodded. He put his arm around her and led her through the blood and death out of the ruined hall, away from the screams. She did not know what to feel: fear, gratitude, horror, wonder. She had married a god of war, and tonight she had watched him reveal his true face. 1 year after the assassination attempt, the sky turned dark with enemy ships. The Drakari hegemony had been waiting for decades. They had watched the Volante Empire and the human territories tear each other apart. They had waited patiently, building their forces, planning their conquest. Now, both sides were weak and tired from 30 years of war, the perfect time to strike. Lyra was in her chambers when the alarms began. Red lights flashed across the ceiling. A deep voice announced emergency protocols. She ran to the window and saw something that stopped her heart. Ships, thousands of ships. They covered the sky like a black cloud, blocking out the sun. Tracery warships, each one bristling with weapons, each one carrying thousands of soldiers. This was not a raid, this was an invasion. The palace fell into chaos. Servants screamed and ran through the halls. Guards shouted orders that no one followed. Nobles demanded answers that no one had. Lyra found Daniel in the war room. He stood over a tactical display, studying the enemy positions. His face was calm. He had seen worse things than this. The Empress sat on her throne, surrounded by her generals. She looked small and old and frightened. How many ships? She asked. 1,047. A general answered. Estimated ground forces, 2 million soldiers. They will reach orbit in 6 hours. Can we fight them? The general hesitated. Your Majesty, our fleets were destroyed in the human war. Our armies are scattered and weak. We have perhaps 50,000 soldiers who can fight against 2 million. He did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. The Empress closed her eyes. Her hands gripped the arms of her throne. Then we surrender, she said quietly. We accept their terms. We save what we can, Your Majesty. Daniel said. Everyone in the room turned to look at him. The human, the peace trophy, the insect prince. He had not spoken in the war council before. He was not supposed to speak. What do you want? Human, a general demanded. Do not surrender, Daniel said. His voice was calm and steady. Give me command of your remaining forces and open a channel to Earth. The generals laughed. Even the Empress looked at him with disbelief. You command our forces. You are one man, a single human. What can you do against 2 million Drari? Daniel smiled. It was not a gentle smile. It was the smile Lyra had seen in the great hall when he stood among 40 bodies. I can win. Humans will not help us, the Emperor said. We were enemies. They have no reason to save us. Daniel shook his head. You do not understand humans. Your Majesty, we do not abandon family. And your daughter, he looked at Lyra. She is my wife. She is human now in the ways that matter. Earth will not let her die. The room was silent. The Empress looked at her daughter. Lyra met her mother's eyes and nodded slowly. She did not know if Daniel was right, but she trusted him. After everything she had seen, she trusted him very well. The Emperor said finally, you have command. Do what you can. Daniel bowed. Open that channel to Earth and clear the war room. I have work to do. The generals left grumbling and angry. The Empress remained for a moment, looking at Daniel with new eyes. Can you really win? She asked quietly. I do not know, Daniel said honestly, but I know how to fight. And I know humans will come. They always come for their own. The Empress nodded and left. Only Lyra remained. You are going to fight? She said. It was not a question. Yes, you said you were done with killing. Daniel looked at her. His Eyes were sad but determined. I wanted to be done. But some things are worth fighting for. He touched her face. Gently, some people are worth fighting for. He turned back to the tactical display and began the work. The human fleet arrived 4 hours later. They came out of faster than light, traveled like a storm breaking across the sky. Not dozens of ships, hundreds. Earth had sent everything, carriers and destroyers, and battleships, fighters and bombers, and troop transports. The Drakari fleet stopped moving. They had expected to find a broken empire with no defenders. They found humanity waiting for them. A message broadcast across all channels. Daniel's voice calm and cold. This is Commander Daniel Cole of the United Earth Forces. The Valant Empire is under human protection. Any hostile action against this world will be considered an act of war against Earth. You have one chance to leave. Take it. The Drakari did not leave. The battle began. Lyra watched from the command center as ships exploded in the sky. Human and Drari vessels tore each other apart in flashes of light and fire. The tactical display showed thousands of dots moving and dying and disappearing, but the ground invasion came anyway. The Drakari had too many soldiers, even with the human fleet fighting above. Thousands in drop ships made it through. Enemy troops landed across the planet. Daniel organized the defense. He split the remaining Volante soldiers into small groups. He positioned them in cities and mountains and forests. He turned every street into a trap, every building into a fortress. We cannot beat them in open battle, he told his officers, so we will not fight in the open. We will fight in the shadows. We will make them pay for every step. We will break their will. The Drari expected to conquer a weak empire. They found a nightmare instead. Daniel led from the front. He did not sit in the command center giving orders. He went to the battlefields himself, fighting beside common soldiers. He showed them how to ambush enemy patrols. He showed them how to set traps. He showed them how to survive. The Volante soldiers were surprised at first. They had mocked this human for months. Now he was bleeding with them, killing with them, dying with them. He learned their names. He mourned their deaths. He never asked them to do anything he would not do himself. Days passed, then weeks. The Drakari advance slowed and stopped. They had expected to conquer the planet in days. Now their soldiers were dying by thousands. Human and Volante fighters attacked them from everywhere and nowhere. Supply lines were cut. Communications were jammed. Officers were assassinated in their beds. The Drakari commander demanded reinforcements. None came. The human fleet had cut off their retreat. They were trapped on a hostile world, bleeding out slowly. Lyra saw Daniel return to the command center after each battle. He was always wounded, burns and cuts and broken bones. He never complained. He barely slept. He barely ate. He just kept fighting. One night she found him alone in the garden, staring at the sky. His arm was in a sling. His face was bruised and cut. How much longer? She asked. Today, maybe weeks. We are winning, but slowly. You are killing yourself. Daniel smiled tiredly. Perhaps, but every day I fight is another day. Your people survive. Every hour I live is another hour we get closer to victory. And if you die, he looked at her. His eyes were soft despite the exhaustion. Then I die doing something that matters. protecting something that matters. Lyra felt tears in her eyes. She had hated this man once, she had feared him, but now watching him destroy himself to save her people, she felt something else entirely. You are the strangest human I have ever met, she whispered. I am the only human you have ever met. That is true. She sat beside him in the garden, under the stars, while war raged across her world, and for the first time since she met him, she took his hand and held it tightly. Do not die, she said. That is an order from your princess. Daniel laughed softly. Yes, my lady. They sat together until dawn. Then Daniel stood, picked up his weapons, and went back to war. The final battle came on a cold morning, when the sky was gray with smoke. Dragari had gathered their remaining forces in their command ship, a massive vessel that had landed in the northern mountains turned into a fortress. Inside was their general, a monster named Thra, who had conquered a dozen worlds. He had 200,000 soldiers left. He knew he was losing. He knew retreat was impossible. So he decided to make one final push. All 200,000 soldiers marched south toward the imperial city. If they could capture the empress, they could end the war in their favor, kill the leadership, break the will of the defenders, force a surrender. Daniel knew they were coming. He had planned for this moment. He gathered his forces, 50,000 soldiers, human and Valante, fighting together. They had learned to trust each other in the weeks of battle. They had bled together, died together, won together. Today is the day we end this, Daniel told them. They outnumber us 4-1. They are desperate and dangerous. Many of us will die, but we will not lose. We will not let them take our home. The soldiers cheered, human voices and Valante voices mixed together. A sound that would have been impossible 1 year ago. The two armies met on a wide plain outside the city. The Dracari came like a wave of black armor and sharp teeth. They were big creatures, strong and brutal, bred for war across generations. They screamed their battle cries and charged forward. The combined forces held their ground. The battle raged for hours. The plain turned red with blood. Bodies piled so high that soldiers had to climb over them to reach their enemies. The air filled with smoke and screams and the sound of weapons firing. Daniel fought in the front lines. He had done this many times before, but today was different. Today he fought for something more than duty. He fought for the world that had become his home, for the people who had become his family, for the woman who had become his reason to live. He moved through the enemy like fire through dry wood. His weapons never stopped. His body never slowed. Dracari soldiers fell before him like rain. Other soldiers saw him and felt courage fill their hearts. If one human could fight like that, they could fight too. But Daniel had a different mission. While the armies clashed, he gathered a strike team, 50 soldiers, the best from both species. Their target was the enemy command ship. Their mission was to kill General Thra and end the war. They left the main battle and moved through the chaos toward the northern mountains. They fought through enemy patrols and guard posts. They lost soldiers along the way. Each death hit Daniel like a blow to his chest. He knew their names. He had trained with them. Now he watched them die. By the time they reached the command ship, only 20 soldiers remained. The ship was enormous, bigger than most buildings. 10,000 Dracari soldiers guarded it. Getting inside seemed impossible. Daniel looked at his team, humans and Volante, young and old, scared but determined. We going hard and fast, he said. We find the general, we kill him, then we get out. A young Valenti soldier raised his hand. What if we cannot get out? Daniel smiled grimly. Then we make sure we take him with us. They attacked at dawn. They used explosives to blow open a side entrance. They moved into the ship like a blade into flesh, fast, deadly, unstoppable. The fighting inside was brutal, close quarters, no room to dodge, no time to think. Daniel led from the front, his rifle emptied. He dropped it and pulled out his blade. He fought hand to hand against creatures twice his size. He killed and killed and killed. More of his team fell. Each death made him fight harder. Each death made him more determined. By the time he reached the general's chamber, he was alone. The door opened onto a vast room. General Thra sat on a throne of metal and bone. He was massive, 3 m tall, covered in scars from a 100 battles. His eyes were yellow and cold. His teeth were sharp as knives. So Thra said, the human war god, I have heard stories about you. You have killed many of my soldiers. Daniel walked into the room slowly. His body was covered in wounds. His armor was torn and burned. His blade dripped with blood that was not his. And I am going to kill many more, Daniel said, starting with you. Thra laughed. It was a deep rumbling sound. You are one human. You are wounded and tired. You have no bullets and no soldiers. What can you possibly do to me? Daniel smiled. It was not a nice smile. I am not just one human. I'm the reason your ancestors learned to fear the dark. I'm the thing that hides in the shadows and makes monsters scream. I am the death that falls from the sky. He raised his blade. And I am going to end you. Thra roared and charged. He was fast for his size, crossing the room in seconds. His claws swung at Daniel's head with enough force to crush stone. Daniel was faster. He ducked under the blow, rolled to the side and slashed across Thra's leg. General stumbled. Daniel pressed the attack. He struck again and again, each blow precise and deadly. Thrak was stronger, but Daniel had fought stronger enemies before. He had spent his entire life training for moments like this. Every movement was perfect. Every strike hit exactly where it needed to hit. General grew slower as blood poured from his wounds. His attacks became wild and desperate. Daniel remained calm, patient, cold. The duel lasted 4 minutes. At the end, Thra lay on the floor in pieces. Daniel stood over him, breathing hard. His blade was broken. His body was broken, but he was alive. He activated his communicator. With shaking hands, this is Commander Cole. The general is dead. The enemy has no leader. The response came immediately, cheering, screaming, crying. With relief, the combined forces had won the battle outside. When news of Thrax's death spread, the remaining Drakari soldiers surrendered. The war was over. Daniel walked out of the command ship as the sun rose over the mountains. His team was dead. His body was failing, but he had done what he set out to do. Rescue ships found him an hour later. They carried him back to the Imperial City, where doctors worked for days to save his life. Lyra stayed by his bed. The entire time, she held his hand and talked to him even when he could not. Here, she told him about her childhood. She told him about her dreams. She told him things she had never told anyone. When Daniel finally woke, she was there. "We won," she said softly. "You won." Daniel smiled weakly. "We won," he corrected. "All of us together." Lyra looked at him, this man who had killed thousands, this man who had saved millions, this man who had merely died to protect the world that was not his own. "You are a hero," she said. "Entire galaxy will remember your name. They are already calling you the god of war." Daniel closed his eyes. "I do not want to be remembered as a god of war. I do not want to be remembered for killing." He opened his eyes and looked at her. "I want to be remembered as a man who found peace, a man who found something worth living for." Lyra felt tears on her face. She leaned down and kissed his forehead gently, then stopped. "Being a god," she whispered, "and just be my husband." Daniel laughed softly. It hurt his broken ribs, but he did not care. "That sounds perfect." Months passed. The Volante Empire rebuilt. The alliance with Earth grew stronger. Daniel became an advisor to the Empress, helping to train soldiers and build defenses, but he never fought again. He kept his promise. He put down his weapons and never picked them up. Lyra found him in the gardens one evening, watching the sunset. He was not alone. Small child sat on his lap, a Volante girl with silver skin and curious eyes. She was an orphan from the war, one of thousands that Daniel and Lyra had adopted into their home. "What are you thinking about?" LRA asked. Daniel smiled. "I am thinking about how strange life is. 1 year ago I was a weapon, a killer, a monster." He looked at the child in his arms. "Now I am a father, a husband, a man." Lyra sat beside him and leaned her head on his shoulder. "Do you regret any of it? The fighting, the killing, everything you did?" Daniel was quiet for a long moment. "I regret that. It was necessary. I regret that so many people died. I regret the blood on my hands." He paused. "But I do not regret protecting the people I love. I do not regret finding you." The child fell asleep in his arms. The sun disappeared. Below the horizon, stars appeared in the sky, bright and peaceful. "I love you," Lyra said quietly. "I never thought I would say that to a human, but I do." Daniel kissed her forehead gently. "I love you too, more than I have ever loved anything." They sat together in the garden, watching the stars, holding each other close. The war was over. Killing was done. The god of war had become just a man, and for the first time in his life, that man was happy.